The sun beat down hard on the dry earth of West Texas, casting long shadows over the Carter family ranch. A light breeze stirred the dust, and the only sound echoing through the wide-open fields was the occasional crack of a .22 rifle echoing off metal targets. 19-year-old Emily Carter, wearing worn-out jeans and a ball cap that read Carter Ranch Supply, squinted through her iron sights. She inhaled slowly, adjusted her grip, and gently squeezed the trigger. A clean ping rang out from the aluminum can balanced on a fence post nearly 40 yards away. Emily didn't flinch. She never did. Her Uncle Jack leaned back in a folding chair under a shaded tin roof shelter, chewing on a piece of jerky and watching her with a mixture of pride and curiosity. She wasn't your average hobby shooter. Emily was precise and Irvingly so. She didn't just aim and shoot. She calculated. Her eyes scanned for wind shifts. She tracked how the heat shimmered off the dirt, and she adjusted for the tiniest deviations in balance. "She's got sniper eyes," Jack once told a neighbor, but she had never been near the military. Since Emily was a little girl, she had come out to the ranch every weekend, helping with livestock in the morning and practicing shooting in the afternoons. It had started out as a fun way to bond with her uncle, but over time, her curiosity grew into an obsession with precision. While other girls were watching TikToks or learning makeup tricks, Emily was studying bullet drop charts and cleaning her rifles with the same care a jeweler gives diamonds. That afternoon, a stranger watched her from a distance. The man, who introduced himself only as Tom, said he was passing through and had heard about Emily's skills from a friend in Odessa. Jack didn't trust easily, but Tom looked ex-military, broad-shouldered, squared off quiet in a way that said he didn't need to prove anything. He politely asked if he could watch Emily shoot. Jack shrugged. "As long as you stay out of her line." Emily didn't break concentration. She didn't even seem to care she had an audience. Her focus was on the rhythming, hail, exhale, aim, fire, ping. She moved through the targets, from left to right, using different distances and stances. Kneeling, standing, prone. Every shot looked effortless. Tom pulled out his phone and recorded a 30-second clip. In the video, Emily hit 15 targets in under 20 seconds, tight groupings. No hesitation. He didn't say much after that. Jess nodded, thanked Jack, and left. A few days later, the video hit social media. It started on a Facebook veterans group, then spread to a marksmanship subreddit. Within 24 hours, it was reposted by a military meme page with the caption, "This Texas girl has better aim than half of basic training." The post blew up. Thousands of shares, tens of thousands of comments. People were debating whether the video was real or edited. Some praised her. Others called it fake. One comment thread caught particular attentions. Someone with a verified account wrote, "I want to meet her, SEAL team stuff." No joke. Senior Chief Petty Officer Ryan Maddox wasn't a man who wasted time on distractions. He'd served 15 years in the Navy, 12 of those with the SEALs, and had seen his share of internet hype. But something about Emily's poise in the video nagged at him. She didn't shoot like someone mimicking Call of Duty. She shot like someone who understood timing and pressure. Her breathing synced with her shots. Her trigger control was textbook, and she looked completely unfazed while doing it. Maddox replayed the video several times in his barracks. Every time, he picked up something new. The way she kept her elbow locked tight, the way she moved her feet slightly to stabilize during a wind gust. She wasn't just talented, she was aware, and awareness under pressure was gold in his world. He picked up the phone and made a call to a friend at the Midland civilian range who helped run weekend events for veterans. "You ever hear of an Emily Carter?" There was a pause. "Yeah," the guy answered. "You mean Eagle Eye Emily?" The nickname made Maddox smile. "You think she'd come out to a base demo?" "Depends. She's sharp, but she's cautious. Not one for attention." Maddox didn't press. Instead, he wrote up an informal invitation. Not military recruitment, not official business, just a friendly, open-range demo session. He kept the tone respectful. No orders. No bravado. Just curiosity. When Emily received the message, she almost deleted it. Her first reaction was disbelief. Why would a Navy SEAL want her at a base shooting event? Her second thought was that it might be a prank. She didn't recognize the sender and had no military connections. She showed it to Uncle Jack. He raised an eyebrow, rereading the email. "You're not going to get a chance like this twice," he said. Emily wasn't afraid of guns, but she wasn't used to the idea of people watching her either. Still, something in her gut told her to go. Not to prove anything, but to find out if what she'd been practicing in isolation actually meant something beyond the ranch. She replied with a single sentence. "What time should I be there?" Emily arrived early. The military base wasn't what she expected. Was quieter, more structured, with distant hums of aircraft and the occasional sharp bark of commands. The shooting range stretched across an open field, fenced off with signs, warning unauthorized civilians to keep out. But she wasn't just a visitor today, she was invited. A guard checked her ID, scanned a list, then motioned her through. "You're cleared for range 2, he said. "Maddox is expecting you." Her truck rumbled toward the lot beside the range. She parked between a Humvee and a matte black SUV. The difference in vehicles was laughable. She didn't care, dressed in faded jeans, a gray t-shirt, and her usual cap. Emily stepped out with her rifle case slung over her shoulder. Her boots kicked up dust as she walked toward the group of soldiers and instructors gathered beneath a metal canopy. Conversation paused as she approached. Most turned to look. Some glanced curiously. A few raised eyebrows. They weren't sure what to expect. Neither was she. Maddox stood apart from the others, arms crossed, black sunglasses hiding his expression. But there was a slight tilt to his head, a trace of interest. He stepped forward and offered a handshake. "Emily Carter, I presume?" She nodded and shook his hand firmly. "That's me. I'm Senior Chief Maddox. Appreciate you coming out. I've seen your work." "It was just a video," she said modestly. "Maybe," he replied, "but you had better form than most rookies we train." Emily smiled politely, unsure how to respond. This wasn't a classroom, and she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was here out of curiosity and, maybe, to test herself. Maddox gestured to the table stacked with rifles. "Feel free to choose what you like. We've got M4 South, scars, even a few coons. Targets set from 100 to 700 meters. Take your time." Emily unslung her own rifle case and set it on the table. One instructor scoffed lightly. "You gonna use that old thing?" She unzipped it and revealed a lovingly polished Ruger, 10-20 seconds. Heavily customized, with a sleek wood stock and a small but precise scope. Her uncle helped her build it over 3 years. "I could," she replied, "but I'll try your toys today." She selected the M4. It was heavier than hers, but balanced. The grip was smooth and cool to the touch. She examined the scope, clicked it gently, adjusted the stock, and walked calmly to the firing line. One soldier whispered, "This should be interesting." She went prone, feet spread, elbows firm. The wind had picked up slightly. Dust swirled around her, but she didn't blink. She took a slow breath. Everything else fell away. The first shot cracked. Steel pinged from 300 meters. No reaction from Emily. She readjusted, shifted the scope by a hair, and fired again. Another hit, then another. She moved between targets with rhythm 300, 450, 500, 600. A row of clean hits. By the time she stood up, there was silence behind her. No laughter, no smirks, only respect. Maddox stepped forward again. "How long you been shooting like that?" She shrugged. "Since I was about 12. Uncle Jack helped me get started, but I read a lot. I watch how bullets move, listen to the wind. Mostly, I just practice." One of the instructors, Corporal Reyes, snorted. "I've seen first-timers get nervous just hearing a rifle crack." She didn't flinch once. Maddox said nothing at first. Then he looked at the far end of the range, past the last steel plate. "Ever try long range?" Emily shook her head. Not really. Closest thing I've done is a 200-yard deer shot. He raised his arm and signaled to a technician nearby. The man nodded and wheeled out a covered rifle stand. Maddox stepped over, pulled the tarp, and revealed a weapon that made the crowd fall silent again. It was a Barrett MRA chambered in .60 caliber, long-range beast of a gun, built for precision, power, and stopping anything from a vehicle to a lightly armored outpost. It gleamed like something sacred. "This one's mine," Maddox said. "She's not usually shared, but I'm curious." Emily's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You want me to shoot that?" He nodded. "Only if you want to?" She stepped forward. The Barrett was heavy, 27 pounds, without the bipod but balanced. It smelled of oil and powder, and its bolt was smooth as butter. She knelt beside it, then settled into prone position again. Maddox pointed far across the range. "Targets at 1,600 yards. Winds crossing light right. You'll need to hold. Over. Take your time." Emily adjusted the scope. Her fingers moved confidently, slowly. She exhaled, counting the rhythm. She'd never shot a gun like this, but she felt no fear. Only focus. She squeezed dot. The rifle roared, echoing across the field like thunder rolling across the plains. The recoil pushed hard against her shoulder, but she held position. They waited. Then, like a soft answer from the horizon ping, she'd hit it, a mile away. With her first shot, the soldiers watching erupted in stunned murmurs. One dropped his phone. Another cursed under his breath in disbelief. Maddox let a small grin escape. Emily lifted her head and blinked. Against the sun she looked at Maddox. That felt ... good. The sound of the Barrett's report still echoed across the wide Texas landscape as Emily calmly stood up and dusted off her jeans. All eyes were still on her, but she didn't shift uncomfortably under the weight of their stares. Instead, she walked back to the weapon table with the same quiet confidence she'd carried in with her, like nothing extraordinary had happened. But to everyone else, something absolutely had. One of the instructors, Sergeant Evans, a blunt, man with over a decade of experience, broke the silence. "She just hit a mile shot. On her first try, with no spotter, no hesitation either," added Corporal Reyes, shaking his head. "Didn't even ask for adjustments." Maddox said nothing, arms still folded, sunglasses hiding the flicker of something rare, genuine surprise. He hadn't expected her to hit the target. Maybe on the second or third shot, sure, but first trigger pull. That was almost unheard of, even among seasoned snipers. Emily returned the Barrett gently to its case and looked at Maddox. "That kick was heavier than anything I've ever fired," she said, rubbing her shoulder slightly, "but the scope was clean, real smooth." "You read the wind like someone who's been doing this for years," Maddox replied. "Where'd you learn that?" She shrugged, watching the grass. "Reading mirage lines. My uncle taught me the basics, and the rest was just trial and error." One of the SEALs named Troy leaned in to Maddox and whispered, "She legit. This ain't some social media stunt." "No stunt," Maddox replied firmly. "That was skill. Real skill." A few of the soldiers started stepping closer to Emily, this time not with skepticism, but curiosity and even respect. One handed her a bottle of water. Another asked if he could see her stance up close. She humbly obliged, kneeling again and showing how she aligned her body with the barrel, keeping the recoil path in line with her shoulder, explaining how she breathed in sync with her heartbeat to minimize tremors. Within minutes, the atmosphere at the range had shifted entirely. Where once stood a doubtful crowd waiting for an amateur to embarrass herself, now stood a circle of professionals eager to learn. And Emily, still just 19, had become their teacher. As they wrapped up the session, Maddox approached her again, this time less formal. He removed his sunglasses and looked her straight in the eyes. "Ever consider competition shooting? Long-range tournaments? Precision matches? I've seen a few on YouTube," she answered, "but I never thought I belonged in those circles." Maddox let out a short laugh. "You don't belong there, you'd dominate." Emily smiled, a little embarrassed, unsure how to respond to such praise from someone like him. Before she could say anything, a well-dressed officer in a dark blue uniform approached from the edge of the canopy. Colonel Darren McKnight. He wasn't supposed to be there. His appearance turned heads. Even Maddox stood a little straighter. The colonel extended a hand toward Emily. "I heard there was a bit of excitement down here today. I had to see it for myself." Emily took his hand cautiously. "Was just trying out a rifle." "Ma'am," he said, "you just impressed one of the most respected marksmen in the Navy. That's not just anything." McKnight pulled a small card from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. "We have a program civilian consultants for combat simulation development. We rarely offer this to anyone without military experience, but you may be the exception." Emily blinked. "Consultant for what?" "Ballistic software, scenarios, field instruction. Your skills could help us train better shooters, especially with modern simulations needing real-world feel." Emily stared at the card. The offer was unreal and intimidating. Maddox stepped in, sensing her hesitation. "It's not a recruitment push. No enlistment. Just a short-term program if you're interested. We use civilians for realism all the time. You'd test gear, give feedback. That's it." Emily looked between the two men. She hadn't come here for a job. She hadn't come here for anything more than a challenge. But the idea stuck in her mind like a fresh round chambered in a bolt. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," McKnight replied. "No pressure, but we'd love to have you on board." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Emily sat in her truck, staring at the business card in her hands. The base slowly faded behind her in the rearview mirror. The wind blew lightly across the road as her tires kicked up dust, but her mind stayed in one place, and that trigger, on that scope. On that moment when silence fell after the ping of impact. But she wasn't seeking a future in the military. She wasn't even sure if she belonged in that world. But something inside her had shifted. She came just to prove to herself she could do it. And now, people who had spent their lives in the world of combat and strategy were looking to her for insight. She had never fired a long-range rifle before that day. She'd never stood on a military base. And yet, in a few calm shots, she'd earned a place in their stories, whether she accepted the offer or not. As the sun set behind the hills of West Texas, Emily Carter whispered the same line she always told herself after a good day at the range. "I'm just practicing." The days after Emily's unexpected debut at the Navy base moved slower than usual. Back at the ranch, everything looked the same. The dry air, the dusty gravel roads, the same crows on the wire. But, inside her, something had shifted. She still fed the horses, cleaned her rifle, and watched the wind dance through the grass. But now her thoughts wandered toward possibilities she'd never considered before. The business card from Colonel McKnight stayed on her dresser. Every morning, she looked at it. Every night, she left it untouched. It wasn't that she didn't want to take the offer, it was that she didn't know how. Emily Carter had never been someone who asked for opportunities. She worked with what she had she practiced, improved, and let the results speak for her. But now the Navy had seen those results, and they were speaking back. A week later, Maddox sent a message. Nothing formal, just a short text. "Coming back to the range. Got something new to try. You in?" Her reply was just one word. Always. The following Saturday, the air was heavier than before, clouds stretching thin over the wide sky. Emily arrived at the base a few minutes before noon. This time, she walked through the gate like she belonged there. The guards recognized her and waved her through. As she pulled up to the range, she noticed something different. The Barrett was waiting. Not just any Barrett. This one was a 60 cal MRAD with an experimental scope system. It sat gleaming on a bipod, pointed toward a field that seemed to stretch forever. Maddox stood nearby, talking with two men in black polo civilians by the look of them. They had laptops and strange, bulky headsets. Emily approached, her boots crunching on gravel. Maddox turned and smiled. "Glad you came. What's going on?" she asked, eyeing the equipment. "You're going to help test a new integrated feedback system," he said, motioning to the scope. These guys are from a defense tech firm. They're working with the Navy to create a smart optic that can give real-time ballistic adjustments based on eye movement and muscle feedback. Problem is, most of the testers don't shoot instinctively. You do. Emily raised an eyebrow. So, I'm your lab rat. Maddox chuckled. You're our benchmark. The techs explained the setup. The Barrett was rigged with a sensory scope that tracked her pupil dilation, focus shifts, and even heartbeat through the rifle grip. It would collect data as she fired. Learning how skilled shooters naturally adjust during long-range precision, Emily said nothing. She took off her cap, tied her hair back, and settled into a prone position behind the gun. The headset felt odd at first, but the weight of the Barrett steadied her. She glanced through the scope, which flickered softly with digital overlays. Maddox stepped behind her. Targets at 1,900 yards. Winds shifting left to right, variable at 10 miles per hour. Emily didn't nod. She simply adjusted. She felt the rifle in her bones. One breath in, hold, pressure on the trigger. Boom, the ground shook beneath her, the muzzle flash bloomed like fire in a tunnel. The techs flinched slightly, then waited for seconds passed. Then, the target clanged, clean and center. Emily blinked. Felt slow, she muttered. One of the techs laughed. You hit dead on, and she says it felt slow. Maddox leaned down. We're upping the challenge. We've got 5 plates at different distances. 1,400, 1,600, 1,750, 1,900, and 2,050. You'll rotate between them, no spotter. She smiled slightly. Good. I was getting bored. Round after round, Emily adapted. The Barrett's recoil thundered across the range. Each shot required precision, control, and speed. And each time, her body moved like it had done this 100 times. No wasted motion, no panic, just precision. The techs were stunned. Their monitors filled with perfect data. After her 10th shot rang out and hit clean. Emily sat up, wiping sweat from her brow. Maddox crouched beside her. You just outshot our last 6 instructors combined. She looked at him. Then maybe they should practice more. That earned a laugh, but Maddox wasn't done. Emily, he said more seriously, I didn't invite you back here just for data. She straightened. I recommended you, he said, to the Joint Civilian Defense Simulation Division. They've got an open consultant role for long-range ballistics and natural response training. You'd work with instructors, shooters, and tech developers. You wouldn't just shoot to teach. Emily blinked. I'm not military. Exactly, he replied. That's why they want you. You're not bound by our habits. You're instinctive, and good instinct is rare. She stared at the Barrett. It still hummed slightly from the last shot. What would I have to do? Come in twice a month, shoot, offer feedback, test equipment, help us build better shooters. Emily stood quietly for a moment, hands on her hips. The wind picked up, brushing across her face. She looked down the field where the targets stood like distant giants. I'll do it, she said. Maddox smiled. I figured. As they packed up, one of the techs approached her. You've got a rare gift, he said. You don't just shoot, you listen to the rifle. Emily shrugged. It talks first. That evening, as she drove home, her truck's windows down, rifle case beside her, Emily realized something had changed again. She wasn't just practicing anymore. She was building something real with steel, silence, and the space between each breath. 2 weeks passed, and Emily's name traveled farther than she ever expected. What began as whispers around the base turned into conversations across military forums. Someone had leaked a snippet of her Barrett test footage online. One perfect shot, the rifle roaring as she stayed perfectly still, a second before the steel target rang from nearly 2,000 yards away. The video spread like wildfire. Comment sections filled with debate. Was she enlisted? Was she trained? Was it edited? But anyone with experience knew the truth. Her body language, her breathing, her grip, nothing about it was fake. The shot was real. The girl was real. At first, Emily tried to ignore it. She kept to her routines, fed the horses, helped her uncle at the feed store, and trained on her own time at the ranch, but things weren't the same anymore. Her inbox filled with messages, some from strangers, others from companies wanting her to endorse scopes, gloves, or tactical gear. She said no to every offer. She wasn't chasing fame, she wasn't selling herself, she just wanted to get better. Still, the attention followed. Colonel McKnight invited her to attend a private demonstration at a secure range outside Fort Bliss. It was a live event, designed to showcase advanced optics for military procurement teams. Emily was asked to participate not just as a shooter, but as someone whose feedback now influenced design. She arrived quietly, as always, driving her old Chevy truck, while others arrived in government SUVs. Men in suits greeted her with confusion, until Maddox stepped in and cleared the way. "She's not here to impress anyone," he said. "She's here to show them what real talent looks like." The demo included elite shooters from multiple branches: Army Rangers, Marine Recon, Air Force Special Tactics. All of them had been briefed on the new optics. All were expected to perform flawlessly. Emily stood apart, watching quietly. When her turn came, one senior officer raised an eyebrow. "She's not even military. Why is she on the line?" Before Maddox could speak, Colonel McKnight answered, "Because she outshot half of you before lunch last time. Let her work." Emily stepped up with the same calm as always. She took the Barrett, now mounted with the latest AI-assisted scope. The tech team stood close, nervously adjusting readings. Emily didn't say much. She adjusted once, looked through the glass, and sent her first round. Boom. The crowd watched the target shake at 1,800 yards. She continued, hitting a 4-plate rotation in 22 seconds, landing 3 dead center. When she finished, there were no questions. The suits started whispering to one another. The tech reps scribbled notes and rushed to retrieve her feedback. The other shooters approached, asking for details: how she compensated for wind, how she felt about the scope's delay, how she found her timing. Emily answered with simple, honest observations. No ego, no showmanship, just precision. Later that day, a photographer from a military publication asked to take her picture. Emily agreed on one condition: no glamour shots. "Just let the work speak," she said. The resulting photo showed her kneeling beside the Barrett, a streak of dirt across her cheek, hair tied back, eyes steady. The caption read, "Eagle Eye Emily, the civilian who taught the experts." That headline changed everything. Within a week, Emily received a formal request from the Pentagon's Simulation and Combat Training Office to join a special think tank, one focused on designing new training modules for marksmen across all branches. She wouldn't just test equipment anymore. She'd help write the manual. At first, she hesitated. The attention overwhelmed her. People started calling her a prodigy, a natural, a legend. But Emily didn't feel like any of those things. Still saw herself as the girl at the ranch who practiced to calm her mind and clear her thoughts. One evening, sitting on the porch with her uncle, she stared at the quiet field stretching out under a fading sky. "Feels weird," she said. "Oh, this attention, like I slipped into someone else's life." Uncle Jack sipped his iced tea. "Sometimes, the world catches up to you when you're not even trying to be found." She nodded slowly. "I never thought it would mean anything. I just liked the silence between shots." He looked over at her. "That's exactly why it does mean something." The next morning, she packed her gear and drove out to the military testing grounds, again not for an invitation this time, but as a scheduled instructor. Her first session was with 4 new Marines and 2 Air Force marksmen preparing for a multinational demonstration. She walked into the classroom with her cap pulled low, carrying only a folder and a rangefinder. One of the Marines leaned toward another and whispered, "That's her. She looks like she just came from Tractor Supply." Emily placed the folder on the table, opened it, and began speaking. She didn't try to sound like a teacher. She spoke like someone who knew her craft, and it showed within 20 minutes. They were all listening carefully. Later, on the range, She had them hit targets blindfolded, using breath rhythm training. Then she broke down complex wind drift adjustments using gravel, sticks, and intuition, instead of a WHITE board. By the end of the day, every one of them asked for a follow-up session. Maddox watched from a distance, arms folded as usual. "We're right," Colonel McKnight said, standing beside him. "She's not here to be flashy." "No," Maddox replied. "She's here to change how we think about shooting. And she's doing it." Emily didn't ask for authority, but it followed her like a shadow. Soldiers twice her age addressed her as ma'am. Cadets stood straighter when she walked by. Commanders began requesting her insight before making gear changes. But what surprised her most was how many wanted to learn, not just how to shoot, but how to see. She never claimed to be a sniper. She never carried a rank. Yet, day after day, she trained active duty personnel like she'd been born into the uniform, and then came the invitation from the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. Not just any call. This one was personal. Maddox handed her the envelope while she was cleaning the Barrett after a long-range day. His tone was flat, but his eyes told the weight of it. "Read it, think hard, say yes, only if it feels right." She opened the sealed envelope and scanned the page. It was a temporary clearance approval level for JSOC was assembling a training module for elite international teams. And they wanted her to run a segment. Not observe, not consult. Led that the location was classified. The shooters would be NATO, Tier 1, and she'd be expected to act with full authority on ballistics instruction. Emily looked up, unsure. "Me, teaching the guys who already know everything." Maddox shook his head. "No one knows everything. And some of these guys think they do. That's the problem. You'll fix it." 2 weeks later, she was airlifted to an undisclosed training facility in Arizona. The aircraft landed on a dark tarmac flanked by guards with no insignia. Inside the hangar were 14 men and 3 women representatives from US Delta Force, German KSK, British SAS, and even Israeli Ray Matkal. They didn't know who their instructor was. The room buzzed with murmurs when Emily walked in wearing a plain bowl cap, jeans, and a hoodie. She carried a Barrett in one hand and a binder in the other. One of the German operators snorted. "She lost, or are we about to get a lesson on yoga?" No one laughed. They were too stunned when Maddox walked in right behind her and said, "You'll want to listen. She's the only one in this room who can shoot cleaner than any of you." Skepticism cracked into silence. Emily didn't argue. She walked to the whiteboard, drew a wind chart by hand, and started with one sentence. "Forget everything you were taught about perfection. Shooting isn't about stillness. It's about rhythm. You don't fight the wind, you learn its language." Over the next 4 hours, she broke them down. Humility came fast. She challenged them with live drills. Hit 1,000-yard targets from unstable platforms. Timed exercises in 40-mile winds. Breath-hold shooting drills after sprinting uphill. By the end of the second day, none of them laughed. All of them took notes. By day 3, the Israeli sniper, known only as Eli, approached her privately. "I've trained with everyone," he said. "But you teach with silence between your words. Like every shot begins long before the trigger." Emily nodded. "Because it does." Eli tapped his helmet. "And that's why you're dangerous." News of the JSOC success spread fast. Journalists started calling her the ghost instructor. She ignored them, but Maddox warned her. "They're circling. The Pentagon wants to brief you before someone twists your story." Emily didn't care about press. She cared about the shooters, the ones whose lives depended on lessons she could share. She returned to Fort Bliss, tired but focused, until she got a call that changed everything. Her uncle, Jack, had collapsed. He'd been checking fence lines alone when a heart issue hit him hard. A neighbor found him by the creek. He survived, but recovery would be slow. Emily didn't hesitate. She packed her truck and drove home overnight. The ranch hadn't changed. The barn still smelled of cedar and hay. The wind still whispered through the high grass. But Emily had changed. She walked with the calm of someone who had stood beside the world's deadliest operators and earned their trust. Still, seeing Jack in bed made her realize what mattered most. He smiled weakly. "You've been on battlefields, and now look at you back to feeding the horses." Emily sat beside him. "Nothing's changed here. That's why I came back." He reached for her hand. "You think all that training made you sharp, but it's this land that taught you focus. Don't forget it." She didn't. Over the next 3 weeks, Emily split her time between ranch duties and online briefings with JSOC. They were developing a remote mentorship program, and they wanted her to run it under her name, Eagle Watch. But Emily only agreed. On one condition: no marketing, no interviews, no cameras. If they want to learn, they'll come for the lessons, not for the face. They agreed. The first batch of students included a wounded vet regaining hand control, a police sniper prepping for SWAT certification, and a young woman from Kentucky who reminded Emily of herself, raw, determined, and underestimated. Her influence was now quiet but wide, and when she finally returned to the range with Maddox, he placed the Barrett into her arms with a rare grin. "This rifle's been reissued twice. They all keep sending it back with one note: it belongs to her." Emily looked down at the weapon. The same Barrett she once fired while just practicing. She ran her fingers along the barrel and whispered, "I never asked for this." Maddox replied, "But you earned it. Every inch." Emily never imagined the war would come home. It started with a message encrypted: "No caller ID." Maddox sent it himself. "Need eyes on situation. High value, can't discuss here. Pack light." 1 day's notice, she left the ranch before dawn, not even telling Jack where she was going. The instructions led her to an unmarked airstrip where a single Blackhawk waited. No insignia, no chatter. Just a nod from the pilot as she boarded. 3 hours later, she was on foreign soil. She'd never been in country during an active never crossed that threshold from trainer to operational asset. But this time, Maddox wasn't calling her to teach. He needed her to see. When the chopper touched down, a Delta Force operator named Briggs met her. "You're the eyes?" he asked. Surprised, she gave a single nod. "Barrett's already prepped," he added, handing her a satchel. She scanned the terrain. Desert flatlands, broken ridges, and minimal cover. The target was a rogue ex-contractor who had stolen encrypted NATO tech and vanished into a stronghold with hired guns. They needed long-range overwatch, and no one knew the wind like Emily. She was inserted before sundown. On a ridge, 1,400 meters from the compound. The wind was shifting every 12 seconds, dust in the air, visibility poor. She had minutes to calibrate through the scope. She saw him, the ex-contractor, pacing the roof, armed, arrogant. He'd made a fortress of betrayal. Maddox's voice came through her earpiece. "One clean shot. Then we breach." Emily stilled her breath, remembered the rhythm Jack had taught her on the prairie. She didn't just see the wind, she felt it. At 1,430 yards, she squeezed. The target dropped silently. No sound but the wind, rolling back across the ridge like a bowstring releasing. "Clean," Maddox confirmed. "Move to extract." But they never made it out clean. A second shooter opened fire from an unseen perch north flank. Briggs went down instantly, hit in the thigh. The rest of the team scrambled for cover. Emily didn't panic. She adjusted. Her scope found the glint. A sniper, local mercenary, trained and fast. He moved between rubble. She tracked his shadow, not his body. He fired again. The bullet missed her by inches, kicking up shale beside her boot. Emily didn't flinch. She waited. When his shadow stilled, she took the shot. This one wasn't quiet. It cracked like thunder, echoing down the valley. The Barrett didn't just fire, it announced itself. The threat dropped. Silence returned. But the air smelled different now, closer to war than training. Emily helped Briggs to the evac point. His arm slung over her shoulder. She carried the Barrett like it weighed nothing. Back at the safe house, Maddox sat across from her, stone-faced. "You didn't come here to teach," she said. "No, I came to see if you were ready." "For what?" For what happens when your knowledge isn't just about saving others, but keeping yourself alive? Emily wiped her hands with a rag. So, did I pass? Maddox didn't smile. You didn't pass. You became part of it. There's no test anymore. There's just who you are now. She returned to the States, changed. Jack could see it. Your eyes look older, he said, sipping coffee on the porch. But not sad, just settled. Emily nodded. It's different when the bullets come back your way. Jack handed her an old photo from her childhood. She was 10, holding a BB gun, squinting into the sun. You always had a gift. Just didn't know how big it'd grow. That night, Emily sat alone on the porch, staring at the Barrett leaning against the wall. The rifle was more than steel now. It carried memory, sweat, trust. It had saved lives and ended them, and it was hers. Weeks passed. Then came an point. They wanted her to deliver a private seminar to their top cadets, not just on shooting, but on composure under pressure. Emily hesitated, then agreed. When she walked into the lecture hall, whispers rose instantly. Half the cadets already knew who she was. The rest figured it out by the way she carried herself. Measured unreadable.com. She opened with a question. How many of you think being the best shot means hitting the smallest target? Dozens of hands went up. She shook her head. Doesn't it means knowing when not to shoot? That's the difference between talent and wisdom. For 2 hours, she dismantled every myth they'd been taught. She told them about rhythm, about respect, about wind. She didn't tell war stories. She told truths. One cadet approached her after, "Ma'am, did you ever miss?" Emily didn't hesitate. Yes, not a shot, but an instinct. I once trusted someone I shouldn't have. That mistake cost a man his leg. The rifle can't fix that. The cadet nodded slowly. And what did you do after? I kept learning. That night, walking back to her hotel, Emily realized something strange. She missed the wind. Not the combat, not the targets, just the whisper of nature reminding her she wasn't in control. She called Jack. I'm coming home. Good, he said. The horses missed you. So did the quiet. The ranch felt different now. The wind still moved the same way across the hills, brushing the tall grass into waves. But Emily noticed the silence more. It wasn't empty, just honest. After everything she'd seen, it was exactly what she needed. Jack met her at the gate, arms crossed, that same half smile he always had when she came home. You look tired, he said. I'm just thinking, Emily replied, hugging him tight. I missed this. They spent the next few days quietly cleaning tack, fixing the barn roof, sitting under the stars. The Barrett leaned inside the house, untouched. Emily didn't need it right now, not to feel strong, not to prove anything. But she hadn't forgotten. A week after her return, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered, military seal. No sender listed, but she knew who it was, from Maddox. You've seen more than most. You've held your breath while others screamed. You can walk away now, and I'd never ask again. But there's a program. Starting, not war, not combat, guidance. Young veterans coming back home, confused, angry, full of fire. They need someone like you. No pressure. You choose. Emily folded the letter, slid it into her jacket, and sat by the corral for a long time. Jack joined her after sundown, handing her a cup of coffee. You're thinking about going, aren't you? She didn't answer right away. They're not asking you to fight, he added gently. They're asking you to lead. I don't want to be part of a machine anymore, Emily said. But I also don't want to sit still while others fall apart. I remember that feeling, being lost. Jack stared across the fields. Maybe that's what this is all for. Everything you went through wasn't just for you. That night, she stared at the Barrett again. It hadn't changed. Same black steel, same polished optics. But to her, it wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was a symbol of growth, of pain, of control earned, not inherited. She took it outside, laid it across the old wooden bench, and began cleaning it. Every motion was precise, slow, respectful, like polishing memories. 2 days later, she boarded a small private plane headed to Arizona. The facility was remote training and rehabilitation center for soldiers transitioning out of combat roles. No ranks, no salutes. Just men and women trying to feel normal again. Emily wore no uniform, just jeans, boots, and her silence. She met the first group on a Tuesday. 6 young veterans, all under 30. Some looked tough, some looked scared. All of them carried invisible weight. "You're the sniper, right?" one asked with cautious awe. Emily nodded. "I'm the one who used to miss until I listened better. That got their attention, GHE. She started small. Breathing drills, target visuals, mental mapping. No rifles, just vision, wind, and thought. She taught them how to stop before pulling the trigger. How to know themselves again. How to wait. One of the younger vets, Maria, resisted. "I didn't come here to meditate. I want to shoot again. That's what I know." Emily met her gaze. "Then learn to shoot your thoughts first. They kick harder than any rifle." The others chuckled, but Maria stayed quiet. That night, Maria knocked on Emily's door. "I can't sleep. It's like I'm still there." Emily didn't ask where. There was, she just nodded. "Let's walk." Under the stars, they said nothing at first. Then Maria spoke. "I watched my CO die. I froze. Didn't fire. I've hated myself since." Emily stopped. "You didn't freeze. You hesitated. That's human. If you didn't care, it wouldn't hurt now. Is that what you tell yourself?" Maria asked. "No," Emily answered. "It's what I learned after hurting for a long time." They stood there a while. Then Maria whispered, "I want to try again, not just shooting life. That's why I'm here." The program grew. Word spread fast. Veterans wrote letters from across the country, asking if they could join. The Pentagon noticed, but stayed silent for once. They understood that something real was happening without uniforms and orders. Maddox visited months later. He found Emily on the firing line, watching a blindfolded Marine breathe through the wind and listen for movement. "Not bad," Maddox said, impressed. "You built something real." Emily didn't look away. "They built it. I just gave them a chance." He smiled. "And what about you? What's next?" She shrugged. "Maybe I keep doing this. Or maybe I go back home and listen to the wind." Again, Maddox held up a familiar case. "The Barrett. You forgot this," he said. Emily shook her head. "No, I left it. But it's yours." "I know." She took it anyway. Not because she needed it, because it reminded her who she had become. Years later, long after the last veteran graduated the program, long after the headlines faded, a young cadet at West Point opened a history module. Inside was a photo of a woman kneeling beside a massive rifle, wind blowing, her hair sideways. The caption read, "Emily Cade, the Whisperer, the sniper who taught silence, saved warriors, and turned war into wisdom." The cadet whispered, "Just practicing, huh?" and smiled.